Okay, one of the practices that is common in conventional haymaking, especially in arid climates, is that producers will often leave the water on their fields prior to the harvest, at much closer to the harvest time than they should. The reason they do this is to be able to get some moisture from the ground to percolate up into the bottom of the windrow in order to give them a little better baling conditions. This causes some other problems though, and there's a number of areas that it can cause problems in. One is that you'll get much more machine damage to the crop itself, the compaction that it causes, tracking in the field from each of the harvest processes like cutting, raking, baling, and hauling the hay. Some of the other problems that are caused by leaving the water on too close to the harvest time is you get a much longer dry down period where it takes a long time to get the moisture out of the windrow, especially if you've double raked the windrow on top of highly moist ground. You will also see that there will be inconsistency in windrow dry down. You'll experience more wet slugs in the windrow, and you will also experience more bleaching generally because of the moisture that is around and under the windrow where it can't dry down as quickly. It'll be more days in the field and you'll have some discoloration from that effect. So using dew point technology, you can change the way you do your irrigation practices by turning the water off a few days earlier, allowing the ground to dry more thoroughly, and in doing so you will be able to reduce the cure time, sometimes by several days. You'll reduce the possibility of wet slugs in the windrows. You'll reduce the possibility of excessive bleaching because the hay will be drying down faster and won't have the sun shining on it as long. Also, damage to your hay crop, machine tracking during the harvest operations will be reduced, and crown damage to your crop that's in the field. One of the practices you should consider really looking at and possibly changing in your operation is with regards to irrigation is how you schedule the rotation of your pivot systems prior to harvest. Now here on this field, for instance, we're up on the high side of the field. The low side of the field is down to the north, and you might notice that the pivot ended down on the north end of the field. That's actually the end of the field that normally receives more natural dew and has a harder time drying the way that it should. And so they've actually done exactly the opposite of what they should have done here. They should have run it from the north end up around to here and ended on the normally drier side of the field so that the entire field would be more consistent in the soil moisture and in the dry down characteristics of the windrow. So remember that as you plan your irrigation as it relates to your hay harvest.